This is the Life Podcast with Manuel, living in full expression.
And remember, the moment you feel like you want to give up, that's when you're at the precipice of your success. So don't give up. You just maybe take a break, relax, take some time out, but you have to get back on it. You can't just stop. Because if you stop 6 months from now, you're going to be beating yourself up thinking, if I'd still carried on, I could have been blah, blah, blah. Believe in you, invest in you, because nobody else can invest in you like you can.
You're welcome to the Life Podcast with me, Manuel. And on this show today, I have a special guest who is someone who has gone through a journey in life that has shaped her life. This person is Amma. Amma is a London-based entrepreneur and a founder of The Elite Women Official, a platform helping women heal, set boundaries, and design harmonious, prosperous life. Amma today is going to be sharing with us her story, what shaped her life, and how she was able to navigate these stories and have become someone who is standing for others. And I'm so happy to welcome Amma on the show today. Amma, it's good to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Beautiful. So, Amma, you just want to tell us a little bit about you. I just gave a little of who you are and what you are doing. So can you just give us a little background of who Amma X is and what shaped your life?
Okay. Well, I'm, as you said, an entrepreneur. I'm all about women empowerment. I've raised 5 children, my youngest being 15, by myself. I'm divorced and I live in London and I've got 2 fur babies. I also run a luxury cat channel where I talk about all things cats because that's one of my passions. And I've got a degree in psychology and criminology and social justice that I completed in 2017. And my background, I've come from struggle, like many young women, especially from the Caribbean/African background. I was adopted and I was then abandoned. I grew up in Jamaica partly, my formative years, and then came back to the UK, went to school, study here, got married, had my children, and left, went to Spain. I was abandoned by my husband in Spain with my children, who were pretty young at the time, and sold every single piece of furniture we had at the time to get a one-way ticket back to the UK. And yeah, that's been my struggle so far. And I've just been working on myself, healing myself because of the trauma from my childhood, from my broken relationships, and realizing that because of the way my childhood was, it's the reason why I fell into all these negative, toxic relationships, and which ended in a really poor, really a very abusive marriage. But the best thing to come from that were my children.
Amma, your intro background is really touching. Would you want to take us back to where
Sure.
where it started from? You talked
Yeah.
about your childhood. How did it all
Yeah.
start that you got to this point in your life?
Well, I was born to an Indian mother and Jamaican father, and my mother at the time clearly had mental health issues, which is what I realized following learning all the things the knowledge I've gained about her and my childhood. She gave me up for adoption when I was a baby because she was afraid that I wasn't her legitimate husband's child because he was already in the war. So when he had gone away, apparently she'd had some feelings for one of his brothers. And it's believed that I could possibly be that brother's child rather than her husband's. So because of that, she kept moving from home, during those days, it was, you could only rent a room. There was no homes like it is today where we can own our own property. So they were living in shared accommodation. So a family of 4 would be in 1 bedroom. So that's what it was. She was moving from home to avoid her husband. And at the time, she had only had 1 fallopian tube because she had had an operation and one of them had been removed. So back then they didn't have the knowledge that we have today to know that you could get pregnant with 1 ovary. So because of that, she kept dodging. In the end, she gave me up. And one of her issues was she kept commenting on my eyes, saying that she didn't like my eyes. I've had 5 children, like I said before. I know babies are innocent and I know that they're innocent. If you're not doing the right things or if you've got guilt, you might misconstrue their their vision or the way they're looking at you to mean something totally different. So that was one of the issues that she had with me. I then later found out that I was going to be adopted by another couple who were from the Caribbean, namely Jamaica. And I was about maybe between 7 and 9 months old when I was adopted by that family. And unfortunately, that too was abusive because my adopted mother's husband was very abusive towards her. And then in turn, he was also abusive to me and my two brothers. All three of us were adopted. So from England to Jamaica, my mum, she is obviously from Jamaica. She's from Jamaica, and she decided that she wanted to move back because she had family there and property out there and to set up her life because I think she thought it was better than being here and she wanted to give us some experiences. So I was about 5 years old when we moved to Jamaica. During that time, it got worse, I believe. I don't know what my childhood was like in England from 9 months to 5 years because I didn't see anything in the records and my mother didn't tell me anything.
So,
But
sorry, this
yeah,
mother you're
sure.
talking about is your second mother now, the
Yeah,
adopted
that's
mother.
adopted,
Beautiful.
yeah, the
Yeah,
adopted
yeah.
parent
Okay.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So he was someone who drank and smoked and he did everything in excess. So whenever he was angry, whatever my mum did, it would result in a physical altercation. And he would throw things at her, he would beat her. And I don't know if I would come to try and comfort my mum and just got in the way, I would also get beaten up. And at one point, he picked me up and literally threw me as if you're throwing a ball or a bag or rubbish away. So from then, my adopted mother now started to give me to people for my own protection. So she would give me to the neighbors, or she would give me to his mother, who was my grandmother, or her brother, just for my own protection because they were so tumultuous. I think they argued practically, it seemed like maybe every day. And he didn't do so much. He didn't abuse my younger or my older brother as much because they had a thing where they preferred boys. I don't know. It's probably a cultural thing where the boys get more protection and they get more praise than the girls do. It was always myself and my younger brother that was always being said to live with somebody or to stay with someone because my mum felt that I think it was probably just for us to have company for each other rather than just me being on my own. Got worse as I got older because there was times she would come back to the UK to work. She was a nurse at the time. So she would come back to England, work. And I think it's something that our people still do to this day. They'll go from Africa or the Caribbean, come to the UK, work, or to the US, any part of the West, work, send money back home, and then go back. And that's what she did. And when she left me, there were times I would be traumatized because I was so scared. I was very thin. I was very small. I was so undernourished, undeveloped because I think I lived in fear at that time as a child. And I was always nervous because I didn't know how he was going to be when he came back from work or wherever he was from. And my mum would always leave money and food, freezer full of food for us. And if my older brother wasn't there, we wouldn't get anything to eat. We would just have packets of crisps, and maybe a small box juice or the fruits on the trees outside if we're lucky, if they're in season. And basically left to our own devices with my older brother being 2 years older as the caregiver for us. And being a teenager or a young boy, he would go off with his friends to play because, that's what children do. And then when he came home, he would get into trouble and he would get the worst beating ever with electrical cables. I mean, we all got it, but my older brother got it worse. And sticks and things like that. And when my older brother stopped coming home so regularly because of all of the abuse, it was just myself and my younger brother now. So we were like this. Everywhere he went, I was. Everywhere I went, he was. Because even though he didn't get as much beaten, he did get the verbal abuse. And I think it's because he was always ill. He was very sickly as well and timid, just like I was. Because, imagine this great big person. You're looking up at this great big person and you're this tiny little person and all you see is aggression and violence. You're terrified. I really remember any good moments with my family, which is very sad. It's very sad. And With that came sexual abuse because my mum was not there to protect me. And he would try to make me do things. But, I just know I had an angel protecting me that I would have the courage to say no and say, I'm going to tell mummy, I'm going to tell mummy. And I know if I said that to him, that means he would leave me alone because that would be another argument or another fight, or she would call someone to come. And my mom was a very staunch Christian at the time. So everything was internalized. You weren't allowed to tell anybody about what was going on at home. She didn't tell anyone in her church. She didn't have a circle that she trusted. And I think a lot of that was down to her own trauma. So she internalized a lot of stuff. And then she too was very abusive. We left and came back to England when I was about maybe 11 and 10 or so. So I was pretty young. We left and came back and we went into school. During that time, my mom was still working. She was doing holding down 2, 3 jobs. So we were latchkey kids. So we would come and go and we would make our own food. She would prepare things, food, sandwiches, whatever, and leave them covered up on the table and give us instructions on what not to do, where we couldn't go out and things like that. And then she would come home. But sometimes when she came home, she was always in a really bad mood. And she didn't talk to us as children to say, okay, I've had a hard day at work today, or I'm stressed because of this, or this. It would just be aggression and anger and beatings. Sometimes I would get beaten for not washing a dishcloth. There was always tumultuous, or my younger brother would wet the bed and I would get beaten for it because I didn't change a sheet. And, as a child, I'm 12, 11, 12. That's the last thing I'm going to think about is going to look at bed sheets and change bed sheets. I want to play. I want to watch TV. I want to, play with my dolls and
Yeah.
do things like that. So my mum never spoke to me about anything, even my body changing. She just made it sound like it was such a shameful thing. There was no talk about, okay, your body is going to change. You're going to have a period and this is what's going to happen. When I had my very first period, I thought I was going to die. I thought I was dying. It was so painful. It was one of the worst experiences ever. And I remember sitting there crying, Mommy, help me. Mommy, help me. She turned around, she goes, what do you want me to do? Cold as ice. And there was no explanation. I didn't have any expectations or any of these things. So these things traumatized me. And every time this monthly cycle came around, I dreaded it, which made it even probably more painful. And me talking to my mum, trying to talk to my mum about some of the things, I knew it weren't her fault that some of the things took place when I was younger, but they disturbed my mind so much. They made me so aggressive that I would put my brother's army clothes on. I'm 16 years old now. And she's saying to me, you've got to go to secretarial school or you've got to go to nursing school. And seeing what she's gone through as a nurse, I was already traumatized by the blood and some of the things that she would be telling her friends about or her church sisters about that she experienced. And I was, no way, that's not for me. And I said to my mum, I want to do acting. I want to sing. I want to dance with Michael Jackson. That's what I told my mum. And she obviously did not approve of that. She turned around and said to me that acting and going into performing arts was for the devil. You're going to be a devil worshiper or you're going to be a prostitute. Because that's the mindset of a lot of the people caught up in religion. They think you're going to sell your soul. I mean, today it's probably more relevant than it would have
Yeah.
been when I was
Yeah.
16
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's so bad now, But she never sat down and spoke to me about anything or said, well, you know what? This is what is going to happen to you, or this is where I want you to go because this is the vision I have for you. My mum's only vision for me that I can remember was getting married. It was that was the ultimate goal. Get married and go and have children, And there were times I just felt like she just wanted to palm me off because she was just picking any and anybody and just because they were in the church. Whether I liked them or not, it didn't matter, you know? Even when I got married, I went to my mom and I was telling her about my husband. My husband's Cameroonian, or he was Cameroonian. And I remember telling my mom about him and she wanted to meet him. She goes, let me meet him. So I brought him to the house. They told me to go upstairs so them two can talk. And I thought, okay, fine. Well, she liked him because he had manners and he was respectful and all of this thing. So she was happy for me to go ahead and get married. But whenever I had a problem in the marriage, because I wasn't taught anything, I didn't know how to behave. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I could say or couldn't say. I just spoke my mind. Whenever I didn't agree with something, I just spoke my mind and it would blow up into an argument. And my mom would always stick up for my husband, like, I know your mouth, you're very mouthy, blah, blah, blah. You don't listen. But at the end of the day, you didn't teach me anything. So everything I've learned, I've had to learn by a trial. We argued consistently. Our marriage was very, very toxic. Very, very toxic. We were not compatible at all. But because my mum liked him, I was trying to please her, always seeking her approval because I wanted her to tell me that she was proud of me and that she loved me. And she didn't do that. It's like she didn't know how to express that. And it's probably because she didn't experience that herself.
Yeah.
And, it didn't help because I was always seeking her approval. Everything I did was for her approval. When I went to college, backtracking a little bit now, when I went to college, I and did the secretarial course that she told me to do. I'm grateful I did it because as I write, it's the best thing I could have done, learn to type, touch type without having to look at the keyboard. But I left and followed some friends from the training centre and went to North London to a college because they had a performing arts course there. And my skin was on fire when they told me there was dancing, acting, and singing. Like, I was so excited. I just thought, that's it. That's my calling. I'm supposed to do this. But then I couldn't tell my mom because I knew she wouldn't approve. But
Yeah.
it was in my bones. I needed, I had to get that out there. So I enrolled and I started my course. And the first month they kept asking me for my paperwork. And of course I couldn't give my mom the paperwork because I was going to get a good beating. And I knew it. So I kept making excuses. So I think 2 months went by. And then they said, okay, well, you need to apply for a grant to get your tuition fee paid. And I thought, oh, I've got to tell her now. I've definitely got to tell her. I haven't got a choice. I stalled again. I carried out a paper run in my bag for another 2 weeks. And then I went and I said, Mummy, I've gotten on a course. I really enjoyed it. I didn't tell her about the acting side. I just about the maths, the history, and the English. And that was fine. She was all right with that because I was learning something.
Yeah.
And obviously she read the paperwork and saw that it said performing arts and asked me what did that mean. And I said, oh, it was a bit of dancing, a little bit of acting, but more focused on blah, blah, blah. I kind of exaggerated it a little bit. And she said, okay, because you're going to college, you're actually learning, you're not wasting time. I don't mind doing this. She signed the form and that was me. I was so happy. That was probably one of the happiest days that I slept peacefully that day. So I went and did the performing arts course. It was for 2 years. And at the end of that course, some of my friends had mentioned an audition. And I thought, oh, audition. That means we're going to start going out to dance and act. And because I was with my friends, I was happy.
Yeah.
In approval again.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything by myself. So we went off to this audition. I didn't know anything about it. I was just following them because they talked about it and I wanted to be a part of the group, And I found out it was Black Heroes in the Hall of Fame. I was excited because I just started building my little ebony collection and my Right On magazine collection.
Wow.
And those were the magazines that kind of helped shaped me in a way with my history, loving myself, appreciating myself and seeing other beautiful Black people because we never saw them on TV.
Wow.
I didn't see them on TV except for growing up in Jamaica, but it was cartoons, and American programs. But as a small child, you don't really it doesn't sit in your mind. So reading Right On magazine and then getting my subscription for Ebony every month, I would go, I think it was weekly at the time. I would save my little pocket money up to go and buy my magazines. And I was in heaven. I'd be in my room, put my little cassette on, and I'm reading my Ebony magazine. So I'm starting to learn a little bit more about Black history, Black inventors. So when they said Black Heroes in the Hall of Fame and then they told us what it was about, I was excited. I needed to be a part of it. But the problem was, how was I going to do it? I was trembling inside. I was shaking because now I had to perform in front of, there must have been at least 200 people there. It was a lot of folks. And I just thought, I really need to be, and I'm shaking and I'm sweating because I really want it, but I'm so terrified. I'm literally terrified because now I've either got to sing, dance, or act in front of these people, which I've done for almost a year and a half now. How was I going to do it on my own? All of my friends managed to get in. Some were dancers, some were singers. And then when it came down, I was just standing there behind the pole and I was shaking. And I remember saying, I've got to go and speak to this director because he'd given out as many parts that he had come prepared for that day.
Yeah.
So I went up to him and I was really shy and I said, I introduced myself And I said, I really would love to be a part of this production. Let me know what I can do. I said, I can dance, I can sing, I can rap, I can write lyrics, I write horror stories, because I was doing that as part of my
Yeah.
channeling
Yeah.
with my energy and my trauma and my own heartache. That's what I was doing. So he said, okay, no worry. Come back on Sunday, I'll have a part for you. So this was the Friday. So I go home now. When I go home, Saturday come now, I'm starting to think about this thing.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what am I going to do? So I start making up some small routines in the kitchen and I'm dancing and nothing is good in my eyes because I'm just thinking, oh, it sounds rubbish or blah, blah, blah. My confidence level wasn't
Yeah.
there. But the drive to be involved in this historic production was pushing me and I was willing to just whatever, do all three things, sing, dance and act, all right, on the same day. So I went back, and when I'm telling you the stars align, I'm not kidding. The universe knew where I was supposed to be. I didn't need to do any of those things. He created a part for me, the part of Sojourner Truth, and she was part of the Underground Railroad. You know about the Underground Railroad?
Yeah. Yeah.
She helped free some of the people that was enslaved. So I got her part, and it was a nonverbal part. But obviously, I had some acting skills.
Yeah.
Mime was a big thing growing up. My mum loved mime, Laurel and Hardy, and we watched that a lot. So I kind of had some skills when it comes to miming and things. And because I didn't have to sing, dance, and act,
Yeah.
what was I going to lose?
Wow.
So I got into that, and I think I'm in this production for 2 or 3 months at the time, and I still couldn't tell my mum. And they were talking about contracts and equity card and this and this. And I'm thinking, yeah, I want to build my equity card. This is one of the motivations for being in this production as well as learning. So I didn't tell my mum again. She found out in the end because I was coming home late due to rehearsals
Yeah.
and I would get beaten. Like, why are you coming in this house at this time and you're only 16, 17 years, you're 17 years old. What are you doing? Eventually, I told my younger brother, because we were very close.
Yeah.
I told him every single thing. Whatever I was doing, I told him. And he ended up telling my mum. So, of course, me being terrified of my mum, too scared to lie, I told her the truth. So I said, I'm having a matinee. I want you to come. So I got them the tickets and she came and she gave me my first boost of confidence because she said,
Wow.
I didn't know you was taking this thing seriously.
Wow.
I didn't know you were acting. I didn't know you could do this. And she said, I'm really happy to see that you're doing something that you like.
Wow.
And that was my mum. If anyone, you couldn't pay me to tell me she would have said that. I wouldn't have believed it, you know? The only downside now, I wasn't getting paid, but I didn't care. I didn't care. It wasn't about the money for me. It was the passion of being involved in something so historical that the money didn't even equate to me. I loved it. I loved the group of people. I loved listening to the elders. I loved learning from them. I loved it. I was just like a child and a toy in a candy store, you know? But the thing with my childhood and coming to that, I started to learn more about myself when Oprah Winfrey's show came on. I would watch that religiously. I'd come home from school. My favorite thing was the Cosby Show. What was the other ones? I can't remember it at the moment, but there was a few Black American programs apart from Fame
Yeah.
that would come on around that time and I lived for them. So those things started to help me feel a little bit better about myself. But it didn't do anything to the psychological trauma that I had experienced from my childhood and was still experiencing with my mum. So there was no conversation. It was always a dictatorship. Oh, you have to go to church every day. We went to church 3 days a week, Sunday, Wednesdays, Fridays. And it didn't matter what the weather was like. And we didn't have a car. So there was times we're walking in the snow and I would suffer from horrible chilblains and they would make my fingers swell and they would itch like crazy and my mom would still force us to go. She would even fight with my younger brother for us to go. No one from the church would say, okay, let's go and pick up sister so-and-so and her children. We were struggling on the bus, you know? There's a lot of things that's happened in my childhood. Some of them, I realized that my mind has compartmentalized in order for me to survive because they're so traumatic. And it's only since doing my story with my daughter that things started to come up that I'd even forgotten about. And she said to me, Mum, I can't believe you've gone for all these things. You know, you made Granny look like she was an angel. You made her look like she was a really good person, but she really wasn't. You know, she burned my hands when I was small because I would drink the condensed milk, and I was stealing it really. I would put a hole in it with an ice pick, start drinking out the milk, suck out the milk from the bottom, put a piece of brown paper on. That would dry up and seal it. And I'm thinking I'm being smart. Mum's never going to find out. Only to realize that the can's getting lighter and lighter each time. And in the end, she stuck my hand on the cooker and burnt my fingers. Horribly, horribly. I was teased when I went to school. It was horrible.
Oh my
All
God.
those things my mind had compartmentalized. And even after uploading my full story with the record, we didn't even finish completely putting all the stuff out there because it was too much. It was too much. And I didn't want to regress back to a space and a time where
Yeah.
I felt so vulnerable, so weak, so insignificant. I can't allow myself to go back there. So if it means not being able to put every single thing out right now, then so be it. That was what I thought. And I'm not just that, I didn't want to traumatize my child even further, even
Mm.
though she's an adult. So a lot of these things have shaped me. And honestly, my confidence level did not really grow until I decided that I was going to stop trying to fit in to spaces where I was meant to stand out, stop trying to shrink myself, stop trying to pretend to be something I'm not. And I did that for years. And I think that's one of the reasons why I ended up in such toxic relationships with people who weren't healed, because I was seeking approval, trying
Yeah.
to fit in, want to be liked, want to be accepted, rather than just accepting me for who I am. I would look in the mirror and hate what I saw. I hated what I was looking at. I hated my hair. I hated being tall. I hated being skinny. I hated everything about me. Every time someone gave me a compliment, it was so hard for me to accept it because I wasn't used to it. I wasn't told that I was beautiful until I was maybe around 16. People kept telling me I'm beautiful. And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, right. What do you want? What do you want from me? I always thought it came with a motive. And
Yeah.
not a positive one. And a lot of it stemmed from me always wanting my mum's approval. Even up until I was 26, 27 years old, I was still seeking my mum's approval. I'm married with 2 children now on my own property, and my husband's doing well in his business. But here I am still seeking my mum's approval. That's the last time I spoke to my mum about the sexual abuse and her leaving me in Jamaica. And I wasn't telling her to make her feel bad. I wanted her to understand maybe why I behaved the way I behaved, maybe why I was rude. Because according to my mum, I was disrespectful. I had no manners. And it wasn't because I was blatantly disrespectful. It's because I questioned a lot of things that she would tell me.
You are listening to the live podcast with Manuel. So, Amma, let's look at
Yeah.
these stories you've had.
Mhm.
Well, how were you able to navigate this? Because this is so much I'm still trying to wrap my head around all you're saying.
Yeah.
But looking at your journey as a child, how were you able to gain your confidence back? How were you able to navigate this abusive relationship, going into marriage, being abandoned, all this? What
Mhm.
did you do differently that helped you?
I think leaving the marriage is where I started to change because, like I said, my husband was toxic. He destroyed my confidence. He told me nobody was going to want me with 4 children, told me about how you've got stretch marks, no one's going to like you, no one's going to want you, and all this negative stuff. And when I left and came back, I decided that no matter what, I've got to show these people that all the negative things they said about me, I was going to disprove them. That was my ultimate goal. I didn't think about my children. I didn't think about anything. I just knew that I had a point to prove. So I left him when I was 8 months pregnant with my youngest child at the time and came back to England. And I stayed in a hotel at Gatwick Airport with my children. We'd just come back from Cameroon with just the clothes on our backs. I really didn't want to go back to my mum's house, but I didn't have a choice because we'd sold our home, moved to Spain. From Spain, Senegal ended up in Cameroon because his businesses failed because of the way he handled things. And I felt he was putting us in danger because of the people he was connecting with. And he owed a Russian family a lot of money. And I just, knowing the little history I knew about Russians, those are not the people to mess with. And I've seen enough gangster movies to know that when the man is in trouble, it's not him they come for directly.
Yeah.
They'll come for the children and
Yeah.
those close, because that's how they pull you out.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I'm leaving because if any of my children end up dead, I'm going to come for you and I'm going to haunt you for the rest of your life. And I didn't want that. I just thought, I've got to do something to protect my children. So we left and came back to the UK. And I stayed in the hotel because I thought, oh God, I got to go to mum's house. And knowing how she was always on my husband's side, even when he was wrong and she knew he did things wrong, she would still blame me. So I was always the one that's to blame for how he behaved and all that business. So I stayed in a hotel for 2 days, and my son at the time, he was 14. He said, Mummy, you have to go to Granny. Granny's not well. You have to go. We cannot stay here in a hotel and the baby's coming soon. And I said to him, do we really have to go? Can we not pretend to just be homeless? And I was serious, I was really serious. That's how much I dreaded going back to stay at my mum's house. And he said, no, my son was so smart. I love him so much. So, so smart. Even to this day, he would tell me, Mum, blah, 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 blah. Get yourself together, And we left, came back to my mum's. She didn't really speak to me. She didn't really say much. I didn't actually tell her all the stuff that we had gone through when we were in Senegal. I was telling my younger brother, and I said, if anything happens to me, you know whose fault it will be, who's the cause. Because at the end of the day, I felt like I couldn't communicate with her. She didn't listen to me. And if she did, it was all right. So I was always going to be blamed, and I just didn't want to hear it. Fortunately, she had booked a flight to go to Jamaica that time, and it was winter. So usually she would stay a couple of months, maybe 3 months until February, when the weather gets a little bit better, then come back. So I had that 3 months, 4 months. She didn't come back till March. I had the 4 months, and I was
Yeah.
so grateful because that's when I started to decompress, and I just started to plan to have my child, because 4 weeks ago, my baby was due. I needed to get my mind right
Yeah.
in order to give birth to her, make sure everything's all right. Once I had her, stayed at my mum's for about 10 months and then moved into a property of my own, because she was always in confliction with my children, complaining about the noise. Sometimes she would be abusive to them, verbally abusive, and I hated that. So I thought it's time for us to go. So we found our own place, and I spoke to my husband. I said, I'm not coming back to Cameroon. He said, I'm not coming back to England. I said, fine, let's just get a divorce. You do what you need to do. Contact your children, phone them every day. We all had Apple phones. You can FaceTime them on the iPad or the laptop or whatever. Be involved in your children's lives. I don't have any issues with that, but we're finished because I'm done. I couldn't see a reason to stay in the marriage anymore. The children weren't happy. When I went back the first time after leaving Spain and coming back to the UK, he convinced us that he wanted his family. Oh, I want my family. My children were crying. I miss my dad, blah, blah. And I felt bad. So I thought, okay, let me go back. We went back, and again, things didn't work out because he was always going to different countries. But that was because he was such a bad businessman. And the people that he was working with, the same Russian people he was working with, he needed to go, and went back to Cameroon. Stayed there for maybe about 9 months or so. But my husband kept traveling back and forth because of the business dealings that he was involved with the Russian people. So we hardly saw him. Things weren't working out great because of the way he conducted business, lack of knowledge, not asking for help, not knowing what to do. He ended up owing 1.5 million to the Russian family. So I got a bit nervous and said, instead of them coming for us, we're leaving, and came back to the UK. And that was it for me. Once I came back, I knew there was no going back.
Mm.
But obviously, I still tried to see if things could work. But because of the way his mindset was and the way things were, I couldn't see, I couldn't see how it was going to work. It stopped making sense to me. So I said to him, I think it's best if we get a divorce, and, you just be involved with the children. We'll plan for them as usual and just keep going the way we're going. The only difference being you're going to live where you want to live and I'm going to be staying here. And that was the end of that. So he didn't want that. He came over, went to my mum's as usual, and cried, saying, oh, he wants his family and he can't understand why I don't want to work it out, why I can't give him another chance, why I can't see that he's working hard for the family. And I would always say, but how can you be working hard for a family that you barely see? Or whenever you are around them, all you do is criticize. or, hit your children because you don't like the way they do things or they're not doing it quick enough for you. There wasn't anything good. So really, what are we saving? And he would try to get my mum to come down and convince me to give him another chance and all this business. And I said, no, I'm not interested. This time I'd started building my self-confidence back. I started by looking at all the things I'd accomplished, because before I didn't value any of the things. I didn't value being in Black Heroes. I didn't value, you know, just focusing on taking care of my children, making sure they had everything they need. It was like breathing air. You just do it. So, and I'd gotten them into a really great routine. I was happy with them. They were happy. They didn't feel scared. They weren't nervous. I was working on their own self-esteem because they were scared of him, especially my youngest son. They used to call him my handbag because I couldn't leave him. Everywhere I went, he was with me. That was the only way I knew how to protect them, was just have them with me everywhere I went. The only time I got separated from my children was when we were in Cameroon, and we were there for 2 months. And he had put them in boarding school as soon as we landed. I had maybe a week at the most, I would say, with them, and they were gone into boarding school. And these are children that were with me 24/7. I don't go anywhere without my children. And it's funny, even to this day, we're still like that. If I have to go somewhere, I'm going with them, or one of them, or two of them. So that was really heart-wrenching because I was pregnant and I was now living in my sister-in-law's house with her husband, and he was gone. So I was there by myself, just me and my little dog, Lily. And I cried for 2 months. I cried every single day because I missed my children so much. And my middle daughter had really bad eczema. So she would have breakouts. And whenever she did, they would be infected. So every minute she was going to the hospital, and all they were giving her was drip. And it got to the point where I was just so scared that I might lose my child. Then my oldest son had typhoid and diarrhea. He was, pooing blood, and we didn't know what the cause was. Then the younger one started. So it's just like, no, this is a classic sign that we need to, get them children out of here. Let me go back to England and go and heal my children. And I begged my sister-in-law when I got to 8 months, because that was the cutoff period to fly. And I begged her, please, just get me a one-way ticket. I can't have my baby here. I need to go back to England. And she felt bad because she saw what was happening with the children.
Yeah.
And she said, you're right, it's best for you to go back. When I booked the tickets and we were ready to go, my husband then decided that he was going to get the rest of his friends and family to come and convince me to stay, that I was making a big mistake, that going back to England, my sons was going to be either gangsters or drug dealers, and my daughters was going to be prostitutes. And I'd say to him, why? Why should that be my destiny? Why must that be the only thing that you can think of? Why is it always negative stuff for you? Always the extreme end. That was his outlook. Always on the negative. Scare tactics. I know that to be manipulation
Yeah.
now. So obviously we'd bought the ticket. So I didn't care what he had to say. I was going. And the following week we left. That's what I was saying to you. We left with just the clothes on our backs because everything was in storage. And all we had was summer clothes. When we arrived in Switzerland, what did we have on? It was snowing. And all my son had on was little shorts, his trainers, and a little t-shirt. I felt so bad. And I just had on a jumper. And the only thing I had that saved me was my Ugg boots, you know? But I didn't care because we were coming back home. And I just know once I got back here, I'd be able to make things right. I'll be able to help sort things out. And like I said, when my mum went to Jamaica, that was my time to just really prepare for the birth of this baby coming and to start. I couldn't even think into the future. My only future was, let me give birth to this child, have a healthy birth, and raise my child and heal. Once I heal, I will start making the next moves. So I stayed at my mum's for 10 months and we moved into a rented property. And it was probably the most liberating I'd felt and free, truly free in years. And I played music from morning till night, Manuel. My music was on 24/7 in the house. These children, they're born in the 80s and 90s, but they know all the old school rare grooves and all the old school soul music because that's all I played. And I healed. That's when my healing journey began. And then I started to listen to positive podcast. E.T. the hip hop preacher was the main one in my house. The main one. When you want it as bad as you can breathe, then you will have it. That was I didn't understand what that meant. I just knew I needed to hear it over and over. So I listened to it every day, morning, noon, and night. That's all I played on my iPad. And then I started to listen to quotes from people like Steve Jobs and Oprah Winfrey. I got this massive big piece of paper and I wrote out all the quotes. And then I duplicated them and had them in my bedroom, on the bedroom wall, in the bathroom, in the hallway. Everywhere you went, there was a poster with quotes on it, and you didn't have a choice but to read it. And I would get my children to read it and to say it over and over and over and over again, because I was building their self-esteem too. I wanted to build them. I really was trying to help them to erase all the things they had endured in their young years. I don't want my children to be traumatized. So that was my goal. I was very strategic. I wasn't even worrying about myself. But I realized that in order for me to help heal them, I had to heal me first, because they come home, they see their mum's face upset or in a mood, and they probably think, oh, what did I do? What didn't I do? Why is mummy angry? Why is mummy upset? Not thinking that it's got nothing to do with them,
Yeah.
but all the things I'd been through. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't go through trauma and just get over it like that.
Yeah.
No matter
That's true.
how free. It's like if you let a wild animal loose, it's going to be nervous. It's going to be looking around,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
even though it's free, it's scared that it could be captured again.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the trauma was that I was always afraid it could come back. When I sat there and I'm laughing, the subconscious mind would be like, "Why are you laughing? You know that this is this, all the negative things, all the negative soul talk, you know?" And from there, I started to, I'm not sure where I saw it, but I got the notion probably from a podcast or a YouTube, because was it YouTube? Was it? No, YouTube wasn't around at the time. It was Facebook or Black Chat. I saw a poster or something that said to write down all your accomplishments, all the things that you've achieved, all the things that you're proud of. And like I said to you previously, I wasn't proud of anything, not even being a mother. And they said even being a mom. And I just thought, oh, okay, so that's something to be proud of. I just thought, okay, you're just a mom and that's it. That's your thing. And, there's no big deal. Nobody rewards us for being mums. So I started writing those things down and I started to look back on all the things I'd accomplished, mostly with my children, all the things I'd gotten them into, the accomplishments they'd achieved. My son, he played tennis for the first time and got a trophy. So did my daughter. They just picked things up just like that. And I was there in the car writing, this is when I was in Spain. I was sitting in the car and while they're playing football or doing whatever they're doing, and I'm writing stories or I'm writing scripts or I'm trying to learn something, And it started with that, and then I started to go back to my childhood and my school years. Even though I didn't get the best grades, I still got something. It was still an achievement. And then it took me into talking about the marriage, what I'd survived and how I got back to the UK. And I didn't do it once, I did it twice. And I started to go back, and then that's when I started to realize that, wow, I've really gone through a lot of stuff. And to still have my head on my shoulders and show up for my children, I was just like, "Whoa." But, that whole my friends used to say to me, "You're so brave. How are you gonna pick up yourself and go to a foreign country with 3 children?" Because that's all I had at the time when we left and went to Spain. And in my mind, I'm thinking, "Brave? It's not brave. I want my children to have a worldview. I want them to have experiences where their mind isn't just kinda in a box where they think only one way. I want them to see the world and have different experiences and experience different cultures." And from there, I realized that I was really doing something that, even though I wasn't conscious of it, that was going to shape my children to be real leaders. And that was my goal. My children, I'm raising children that's going to be productive and beneficial to society, not people that's going to come and, instead of making the world a better place, they add to the trauma, the destruction, and all the things going on. That's what my goal was. And I started to feel a bit better about myself. And then I started to look at all the goals that I still had and all the things I wanted to accomplish. And one of them was doing an audition on Britain's Got Talent or
Talent.
something along them lines. And my son was 16 and I went with one of his best friends. They're still best friends to this very day. He said, "Auntie, I'll come with you." We stood there in that queue for like 8, 9 hours. Honest to goodness, I didn't have that support there. I probably would have said, "You know what? I can't. This is too much. I'm gone." And I went ahead and I sang a Patti LaBelle song that I don't think they knew at the time. So obviously I didn't get in, but I didn't care because I did it.
Yeah.
I did the audition. It wasn't about, okay, I must get in. It's just like, yeah, I want to audition for this and see what happens. So I accomplished that. That was another thing that kind of that's the confidence growing.
Yeah.
It took me 3 years of consistently doing those things, music 24/7, reading those quotes, listening to E.T. the hip hop preacher. 3 years non-stop. I didn't leave the house, didn't go anywhere. I ordered groceries online. I I would take my daughter out for a walk in her pram when the weather was nice, but most of the times I was just indoors, just working on me, working on me, working on me. I didn't really have that many friends because I didn't have the capacity for anybody. I was too busy trying to put me back together, fix the broken parts of me to be the authentic, strong woman that everybody kept telling me I was. That word also made me realize that it was keeping me trapped in a box. "Oh, you're such a strong woman. Oh, you're strong. Oh, you're gonna be all right." But inside I'm dying. Inside I'm crying. Just because you don't see the physical tears, it doesn't mean that
Hmm.
my heart is hurting. But it was just like I wasn't allowed to show vulnerability. I wasn't allowed to cry. I wasn't allowed to break down. This was also stemming from my mum because she was that woman. She was cold as ice. She didn't show any emotion. When I gave my mum hugs, my mum's hands would be like this, straight down by her side. That's how my mum was. And I wasn't going to be that person. I had to be the difference because I had children. I gave my children hugs and kisses every chance I got. I filmed them, I took photos. She would always say, "Why don't you leave the children alone? Why are you always taking pictures of them?" I said, I'm documenting reality, mum. Before I even knew that word, that's what I would say to my mum. I'm documenting the future because I wanted to make sure when I look back, every single moment or every month, because that's when I would take photos of them when they're every single month. I wanted to remember how I felt when I took those pictures, you know? And
Yeah.
that's what I did. Even to this day, when I look back at certain pictures, I'm transported back to that thing. And it was good. It wasn't negative stuff. I didn't want, not saying that I was kind of covering, throwing the negative stuff away. They just weren't going to be the central focal of my
Yeah.
life. I wanted positivity. I wanted happy moments. I wanted things that made me feel good inside. And that's what I started to do. From there, I continued writing, but I decided I'm gonna start writing books now. I started them in Spain when I was in a village. I wrote 1 book. That one got published, but I wasn't happy with how the publishing company had chopped up my storyline. I wanted it to remain as authentic as I'd written it, the visions that I had. I had 3 storylines that came to me all through my dreams, and I wrote them down, and I did the outline, and 3 of them I decided, "Okay, it's time for me to start working these." So that's what I did. After that publishing that book came out, and I said I weren't happy, I didn't promote it because I just wasn't happy. I felt like they took away intrinsic parts of the stories that was important to me. And I was tied into this 5-year contract. And I thought, okay, when I get back to England now, this is just before I left Spain and sold every single piece of furniture that we had. I said, I'm going to work that book again when I'm out of contract and I'm going to republish it myself. So that's what I did. And now I'm reworking it again because I want to bring it up to date 2024/2025, but still keep the whole overall authenticity and the overall storyline, but just make it compatible with today. Because
Hmm.
in the older version, it's talking about videos, and we've
Hmm.
moved on from videos a long time ago. Now we
Yeah.
have MPs that you just download onto your
Yeah.
phone and things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still have the original version. So that was another accomplishment that I took on with pride. And from there, I went to uni. I hadn't been to uni since I left school when I was 18. After I finished my college course, that was for 2 years, 16, 17, 18. And then I went into Black Heroes just after my 18th birthday, and I was there until I was 19. So I was there for about a year. After that, I got pregnant with my oldest daughter. I had her and then ended up putting Black Heroes aside. Always had the intentions of going back, not realizing that when you're a parent, those things
Yeah.
no longer become, especially when you haven't really got the support, those things are not going to come to fruition. But I always felt I was going to have the opportunity to go back and especially meet some of the people that I had made good friends with, you know. I always had that, but it didn't come to fruition. And then I got married and had 3 other children. And from there, went to Spain, came back from Spain to Senegal. I came back here for about 2 months just to get a break because the marriage was there was too many problems when my husband was still in Spain. And then after Spain, went to Senegal so that we could set up a milk production company. And that's the business that he messed up. That business would have really, had he followed instructions and listened, we would have been really doing really, really well. I probably wouldn't have come back to the UK so soon. So once I saw that that was failing and the people that he owed money to was becoming more serious, I just felt insecurity and I didn't feel safe. Then we ended up coming back to the UK. So after the couple of years of just making sure my children settled in and gone to school, I decided, okay, I'm going to go to uni because that was something that my mum wanted me to do. Here I go, still trying to accomplish something, like one of her dreams. At the time, she wanted me to do law, and I wasn't interested in law. My younger brother did law, but I wanted to do something that I was really passionate about. And I really got into criminology and psychology. I watched a lot of the programs on TV, which even further inspired me. So I enrolled, and I hadn't been in any form of study since I was about 18. So going into studies at 45 was crazy. And I didn't even think about it. I just
Wow.
my confidence level was so strong, I just knew I could do anything. So my age wasn't a factor. The fact that I hadn't been into an institution in over 20 years did not even phase me. But after my first year, that's when it started to realize I started to realize, oh, maybe I bit off more than I can chew. Because I was struggling. I was struggling. I couldn't understand what they were saying. They kind of killed my dream of what I expected criminology and psychology to be about. So after my first 2 terms, I hated all of these subjects. I hated psychology. I hated criminology, and I just thought, oh, but I wasn't going to quit because I just I cannot set that example for my children. You know, my son was also at uni. He was doing his first year of law. So if I quit, imagine what message am I sending him? So I had to fight and I struggled and I fought and I fought and I thought, okay, I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure I pass. At this stage, I just wanted to pass. I wasn't even looking for a 2-2 or a 2-1 or anything at that stage. I just needed to pass because this was me proving to myself I could do it. You understand? That was the only motivation. You got this, girl. You're smart enough. You're smart like anybody else. You can do this. And I did it. My mom got sick and she passed in March and I graduated in May of 2017. Yeah. And so I was happy I did it. And that was it for me. That was my biggest accomplishment. So those things also helped to build my self confidence even more. And obviously, I read a lot. So, reading a lot of self help books also helped to shape my mind and to undo some of the things that, was taught to me as a young girl. People telling me I wasn't going to amount to anything, that I didn't have talent, that, no one was promoting me or saying, okay, I see your talent. Oh, what about so and so? She's really good. What about, she's good at this, she's good at that. There was never any of those except for my younger brother. He was the only one. Come on, you could do this. They used to call me Babs. Come on, Babs, you could do this. That would be my younger brother championing me. He was the only one, my biggest champion. Once I did that and I'd completed my uni course, I thought about going into a longer term course, but I just didn't have it in me. I didn't have it in me. There was other things I wanted to do. Now that I'd done that, what's next? What's the next thing that I want to do? And I knew that I wanted to definitely work with, because I've always been interested in how the mind works. So psychology and criminology, that's always going to be something that I want to be involved in, but more so the psychological aspects of how the human mind work. And that stemmed from me trying to understand my own mind and realizing that, like I was saying to you earlier, and a lot of the trauma I kind of, for some reason, have blocked, not intentionally, I think I've just rewired my brain so much to just focus on the positives that those things just kind of started to drop off as I grew, you know? And my goal was to really just make sure my children had a tunnel vision of success. That was all. I don't want to hear anything about anything negative. If you say you're going to do something, do it. You've got this. My children will tell you, I'm their biggest champion. They can't come and tell me, Mum, I want to do this. And I'll say, you got this. You can do this. And that's how I've always been, because my children have to be better than me. I have to break this generational curse of abuse and, psychological damage that's happening to a lot of young people in our community. My daughters have to know that they are the world. Even if nobody else knows it, I don't care, as long as you know it. And my sons have to know you are valuable. You don't need to be like the typical guys out there running around doing this, sleeping around and all that crap. I taught my sons those things. Your body is valuable. Because there's a lot of men that don't teach boys this. They teach their sons to go out there and just sleep with any and anybody. And they're not thinking about the souls and the spirits that they're also taking on, the traumas that they're taking from other people. And I think that's why a lot of men are so messed up, and women, you know. But I think with women, we talk more. We've always been open. We talk about anything because we don't have a taboo. That's why it's easy for me to speak. I could talk to you about any subject, whether you can relate to it or not, because it's part of our human experience. And we're so liberated in being open with communication. Our brothers are still slow behind. They haven't caught up yet, even to this day. A lot of men will not talk about their feelings. Do you know what I mean? And they internalize things. And then out of that comes the traumatic behavior, the
Yeah.
violence,
Yeah.
and all those other negative things. Do you know what I mean? But we're human. We're human. There's only so much we can keep and not share before it destroys us. So my goal was always to make sure my sons are not those type of men. I told my sons, you will never be like your dad. That was one thing I told them. Never. So I taught them to cook, clean, wash clothes by hand, and not rely on a washing machine. They know how to load the dishwasher. They know how to use a washing machine. If they unfortunately haven't got access to those things, they will survive, because I made sure that they will survive, you know? And my girls, I did the same. Don't accept someone who's going to abuse you. You saw what I went through with your dad. Don't allow anyone to talk to you in any kind of way. Walk away the instant you feel disrespected or devalued. Walk away. Have the confidence to do that. Even if you feel like you're so in love with that person, break your own heart rather than let someone break your heart. And, out of all of this, I see the same. For me, the biggest thing for me was breaking patterns with my girls. Even though I was 19 and I was still young, my frontal lobe has not developed yet. I wanted to break the pattern of them having children before a certain age. And they did. And they had really good long-term relationships, but obviously their partners were not good for them because, like I said, the same unhealed traumas,
Yeah.
violent behavior, lack of upgrading their mindset, not wanting to learn anything, thinking they're okay where they're at. And a lot of women are putting up with that type of relationship because men are not elevating. They don't want to grow. They think because they're protected under patriarchy that's it, everybody should accept that. But 2025 women are changing. And I'm out there empowering women and encouraging them not to put up and deal with someone that's going to make you feel less than who you are. Because why should you? Why should you? You have an inherent right to be 100% of who you are, who you're meant to be, to live in your truth, to walk in your destiny. All of us. But I can't teach a man how to be a man. So I can teach women how to be women. Only thing I could do is guide my sons to be the version of what I expect a man that I would want to be involved with or associated with, of how I think that person should behave.
You are listening to the live podcast with Manuel. So, Amma, looking back at the experiences you've had, would you say that these people, your mother, your father, your husband,
Yeah.
would you say that they did this intentionally, or would you say that if they had known better, they would have acted better? And then secondly, how did you heal with these people? How were you able to go through? Because having gone through this trauma, these challenges with these people, there's a part of you that will want to resent them. There's a part of you that want to feel bad when you remember them. How were you able to deal with those part of you?
Yeah, sure. To answer your first question, no, I don't believe it was done intentionally. I believe, people project onto you or do onto you what was done to them. So I think a lot of the negative trauma is from their own childhood, their unhealed traumas from, their parents. It's almost generational, it's like a generational curse. Abuse people abuse people. You have to be conscious in order to break that pattern. And it has to be something that you work on every single day, and I think some of us will go on to break that pattern because we're intentional, while others either don't know how to do it or just don't care enough to do it. So, with my husband, that's how I feel, because coming from abuse, and I know that I came from abuse, it was my intention to make sure my children did not suffer and go through the stuff I went through. There's things I couldn't control, and I feel like for him, coming from this a similar background where his mum died when he was very young. I think he said his mum died when he was 15 of cancer. She was very young herself. And after that, his dad went off and got remarried and basically abandoned his children. And I feel like if that's your reality and that's your experience, should you not try your best to be different, to do something different, have a different outcome? So I realize that not everybody, has the capacity to sit down with themselves, be honest with themselves and talk about the stuff that they've gone through in order to start the healing process. So they're in denial. It's how it is. It's not that bad. I'm grateful because if they didn't adopt me, blah, blah, blah. Those are just excuses. That's not a solution. You're just kind of you're excusing bad behavior and negative behavior even if you're suffering from it. So for me, consciously, I had to leave everyone. I left the husband. My mum passed, even though when she was around, the best relationship I had with my mum was when she got dementia, sadly, because that's the only time she really sat there and listened. So I think the last 5 years of her life, I think I would say I'd had the best relationship with her, but I still had to have boundaries and steps because the toxicity was still there. It would always come out every so often, but she was a little bit more gentler during the last few years of her life. So I had to just cut everybody off, complete detachment. That was the only way to heal, because if you're in a traumatic environment, it's difficult to heal because you're always being pulled back emotionally or psychologically by whoever is the perpetrator in that experience. In order to heal, you have to disconnect completely and move forward. And that's why I didn't have many friends, because the friends I had at the time knew of the traumas, knew of the negative experiences, and always talked about it. So it was almost like they kept pulling me back into those experiences, and I was trying my best to get away, detached from them. And that's why for the 3 years, I didn't really have any friends. I started making friends online. Black Planet, I think it was at the time. But those were people online. I didn't know them in real life, and they were from anywhere in the world. So that was the start of it for me, just completely disconnecting myself. I was in the church because that's how I grew up. And even when I left the New Testament church and became a Seventh-day Adventist, when I came back and after I had my child and we moved now into my own property, there was a church not too far. And I just took that as a sign that, oh, God wants you to go to church because guess what? It's 5 minutes down the road.
Mm.
So I would take my children and I would sit there and I'm listening. I'm really trying to engage with what message this pastor's saying, but I can't relate because he's speaking up there and I'm down here. And I'm just wondering, is anybody else in this place relating to what this man's talking about? And the children were crying, Mum, I want to sleep in. It's Saturday. We go to school Monday to Friday. Why can't we sleep in? We only have one day to do, to relax. And then the other day we're preparing for work, school again, and the cycle continues. So I would force them. And we did this for like maybe about a month. And the last 2 months that I was in that church, I sat there playing games on my phone with my daughter, who was a baby at the time, because I didn't want her to make noise. So I was entertaining her. And I was so disconnected. And again, I couldn't relate to what this man was saying. And I just thought, why am I even coming here? What am I doing? And I'm only coming here because I feel guilty, which is not a good reason to be going. And then when I look around, all the other people are sleeping. Everybody's snoring, big snoring. That some of his sermons was talking about them snoring in the back of the church. I would laugh. And then I said, okay, do you know what? These children are not enjoying it. They're not getting anything out of it. So I'm not going to be forcing it. And besides, I could really use the rest. I'm tired. I could be doing other things on a Saturday afternoon, maybe us watching a movie together, cooking and having a nice meal and just being with my children. So I stopped going. And then after I stopped going, a lot of my childhood was also based in the church, like I said to you. And it was like, if you don't pray, you go to hell. You're going to hell. So that was one of the fears that kept me going and kept me praying. And then one day I just thought, you know what? I'm not gonna pray tonight. Let me see if I wake up tomorrow morning. I really did. I lied down in this here bed and I didn't pray. And it felt weird. And then the next day I didn't pray again. I still felt guilty because I've been programmed to do this since I was a very small child. And I think about a week, I did this for like a whole week and thought, well, I'm still here. I'm not dead. Everybody's okay. The roof hasn't fallen in. Do you know what I mean? There was no holes opening up at the bottom of the floor. So really, was it all crap they told us? That's what I kept thinking. Was it all a lie just to keep you in fear? And my youngest daughter used to pray. Baby, she was 3 years old and she was praying. And one day I said, baby, you don't have to do that. You can just say, thank the universe. Just say, thank you, universe. Thank you, universe, for a life, for a family. Thank you, creator. That was it. Because I didn't know if there's a God that exists. That was one of the arguments I had with my mum. You keep telling me about this God, this. How do you know he's there? And I wasn't being rude. I was genuinely asking a
Asking
genuine question.
questions. Yeah.
Because the way they speak with conviction, just like me and you sitting here having a conversation. That's how they would make it sound like they had this conversation with God. And I really wanted to know, why can't I speak to him and see him like you do? So after I stopped praying, I realized that a lot of it was manipulation and control to keep you living in fear. And I just thought, what wickedness is this? So for me, that was the end of that. And I started to just change from there. I started having more trust. When I asked the universe for things, they were coming to me. Whereas when I was praying, I wasn't getting an answer. I wasn't getting things. Things were just happening. Things were coming to me. Money. When I tell you money was coming, I was scared because I just thought all this time I was suffering. I probably could have been in a better place because I believed in this and all the programming and all the fear that my mum and put me through and projected onto me had kept me living in scarcity and, fear. And I don't know if you know what you think, you manifest. If you think your life is going to be trouble, guess what? You're going to bring that energy to you. I started to learn about the law of attraction. I got into the law of attraction and that started to help with some of the programming on doing some of the beliefs, some of the thoughts, and just being in a space where I can get up in the morning and, oh my God, what's going to happen to me today? Instead of that, oh, I'm so grateful. It's such a beautiful day. Look at the morning. What a beautiful day. The plants need the rain. Even if it's raining, I'm still grateful. My life just started to change from that. You have to work on yourself. A lot of it's to do with the programs that we were fed, not just from church, but school and society in general. So much. It takes a lot of work and conscious work to undo that damage. So I work on myself every day. I'm not perfect. I never will be. I'm just a forever student, willing to learn, open to listening and accepting other people's perspectives. Even if I don't agree, I'm willing to listen. That's the mindset I've chosen to integrate and develop myself, into having. Everybody's got their own experiences and
Yeah.
everybody's come from different walks of life. And I learn from you. And I'm sure you learn from me just like we learn
Yeah.
from others.
Yeah.
We don't know everything. So I think as long as we stay open, we're always going to be open to learning and improving. And I just try my best to share that with other women because when I was stuck in Spain, when I was stuck in Senegal and I couldn't figure out how the heck I was going to get back to England, I went searching on the internet to see if there was other people out there who had had that experience and to learn how did they do it. I am that woman for any woman that's out there stuck with their children, not knowing how to get out of an abusive relationship, not having that support system because the family is not there or their support system, whether it's family, friends, they don't have that. I want to be that woman for somebody who is in that position because I know how painful it was when I was in my own.
So talking about being there for people, fast forward to today,
Yeah,
this experience you've had, how has it shaped your life? I know you do some programs online. Tell us
yeah.
about what this experience had made you to become today and how you've now used this program or this experience to now begin to impact other women like you. Would you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. From a psychological perspective, understand how the mind works a lot more now than I did even 5 years ago, because I've come to the conclusion that there's only one you. You can only be you. There's nobody else on the planet like you. So the best thing you can do is live in your authentic skin. Be who you truly are, because you have something valuable to give to the world. And that's why you're still here. If you didn't, you wouldn't be. It's simple as that. And then for me, I realized that there was something inside of me that I really want to help other women. I really want to see women learn to love themselves, to appreciate themselves, to know that they're valuable and that you're not just here to be someone's mum or someone's wife or someone's daughter and that's it. You die. You have dreams and you have things that you're supposed to bring to the world. You've got to figure out how to do that. But if I can help inspire someone who's gone through trauma, who's going through trauma, even if it's just one thing, that is definitely something that I want to do. That will definitely help somebody else, see that they too can get through the worst of times. They just need to have the desire to want to do something different, to make a different change, to stop being scared, to let go of fear, which is false events appearing real, is processing things that haven't happened. You know what I mean? That's what fear is. It's things that hasn't happened yet that your mind is telling you, oh, this could. Could means it hasn't happened. So it's to let go of all of that and know that you can be the best version of yourself. You can change your life, and it doesn't matter what age you are, you know? You just need to make that decision. And that was one of the things, seeing a lot of women beat down, hard done by, whether by family members, friends, relationships, just not having the self confidence and wanting to do things, but too afraid to do it. Because I was that girl when it was Black Heroes. I was terrified. I just want to be there to help women be the best version of themselves, live in their truth and not be apologetic about it. If I had someone, if I had me 10, 15 years ago, I can't even imagine what my life would have been like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just to know that, oh my God, especially when it's someone from the country or, the culture that you come from, it's so much easier because you can relate to a lot of things.
Yeah.
When I'm looking online for, I don't know, whether content to do with a particular thing, I want to see it from someone who looks like me. If they're from the UK, that's even better because we understand our culture. Our culture is not the same around the world, even though we're Black people, but we'll have a lot of things in common culturally that we can identify with. But
Yeah.
when it's someone from your city who knows how, like, for example, someone who lives in the UK, I can relate to someone who lives in the UK more than I would do a Black American
Yeah.
or someone from a different part of the Caribbean or a different part of Africa, even though I've lived in Africa, because of the culture, we have an understanding.
Yeah.
So finding someone that I can relate to or someone who can relate to me is also a bonus, is a big bonus for me.
So what are you doing right now, Amma? What platform are you reaching out to people? At what
Yeah.
platform are you helping Amma 15 years ago?
Right now, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. I also do have a YouTube channel, but I haven't, it's fresh. I've just basically started that. So I'm starting to put long form content on there. But at the moment, I'm just really doing a lot of short form on content to build up trust, to build up the platform, and then from there to just spread out. That's my plan.
Okay. So tell us about the Elite Woman Official.
Yeah.
You started that program,
Yeah.
and you were sharing with me before now about how you were inspired by that. Can you just share a little light about that and how that is also being an avenue that you're
Yeah.
reaching out to other women?
Yeah, for me, Elite Women, it's basically an acronym. And when I came up with that, I didn't even realize it spelled out elite until afterwards. Because for me, it was just like, evolve your story. What is your story? Tell your authentic story, who you are, because your story is what makes you the person you are today. And then love yourself. Be unapologetic when it comes to loving yourself. Don't be scared to boost yourself, to big up yourself, to speak highly of yourself, because a lot of us are taught to shrink. So I feel like we need to do the opposite, especially with our young girls and our young boys.
Yeah.
I do the same with my sons. I do the same with my grandsons, because I feel like if we don't, as parents and people in our community, in our family, if we don't big up our children, the world is not going to do it. It's going to do the opposite of that. It's going to tear them down, it's going to break them, and then it's going to scatter them. And I don't want that for my grandsons or for my daughters. And then invest. So it's investing in your skills. A lot of people are scared to invest in learning something because it's too expensive. You should be your most valuable asset. You are your most valuable asset. So why would you not invest in that? That could be courses, that could be retraining, that could be books, reading, taking the time to just sit with yourself and be at peace, to look in the mirror and say, okay, you know what? I messed up here, here, and here. I forgive myself. I had to do a lot of that because I wasn't perfect. I made a lot of mistakes with my children. I made a lot of mistakes in my own life. I had to forgive myself, even in my marriage. I wasn't perfect. I made a lot of mistakes, but I had to forgive myself in order to move forward because we're humans. We're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. Just learn from them and do right at the end of the day to
Yeah.
yourself and to whoever is around you. And then trust. Trust was a big thing for me and still is to this day. But I trust my spirit more than I do anything else. So if my spirit's telling me, don't mess with that, don't go here, don't do that, I listen. I've learned from the past where I've ignored it and gotten myself into horrible situations or, stuck on traffic where my spirit was telling me, don't go right now or don't go today. But because I'm going, I've gotten myself into hot water. So I learned to trust my spirit. Your trust also sets boundaries. When you set boundaries and you say no, no is not an insult. No is an answer. So when someone asks you something and it doesn't sit with you, don't feel obligated to say yes and then go against yourself. That's another thing I did when I was younger and I ended up hurting. And then envision the life that you want for yourself. Do you want to be struggling or do you want a soft life? I don't want to be struggling. I think I've done enough of that. And I'm in my soft life era now where anything that doesn't benefit me or suits my soul or is going to make me feel stressed out, I want no part of it because it's not about that kind of crazy life or risking things anymore. It's about peace, creating peace, being at peace with myself, living in peace. When you're in your home is your castle. It should be the best and the most sacred place that you have. It shouldn't be chaotic and a war zone. It's not good for our mental health and it's not good for our spirit. So those are the things that when I was writing, what do I want for my life? Where do I see myself? What is the thing that mean the most to me? Those are the 5 things that came up. And when I looked at when I looked at all of them, I thought, oh, it's supposed elite. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to be the elite woman. I am the elite woman. All the things I've gone through has made me the elite woman. And that was why I decided to call my new business the Elite Woman Official. Because you're officially becoming all of those things for yourself. You're becoming an elite woman for yourself because this is the best version of me. What you're seeing is the best version, not the broken Amma, not the low self-esteem Amma, not that Amma looking for approval. The Amma that you see here today couldn't care less about any of that stuff because she has so much love. I have so much love for myself. I have so much trust in myself, that all I can do is pour out and give back. That's all I'm interested in doing is giving back and sharing and helping someone else to be a better version of themselves. Someone to have the confidence, like I was saying earlier on, to leave a bad situation. Having the confidence to go for your dreams, whether it's a singing audition, an acting role, a course, a job, just knowing that you can do all of that, believing in yourself. That's the ultimate for me.
So how would people connect with you on Elite Woman? Do you have a
I'm
website? Do you have anywhere people can connect with you?
Yeah, I have my Instagram. They can find me at Official Woman on Instagram and on TikTok. I'm Elite Woman Official on YouTube. Although I've only got 1 subscriber at the moment because it's fairly new. I've got
Yeah.
to start doing some work on
Yeah.
that. I'm also on Facebook, Elite Woman Official, and I also have a stand store where I have some digital products on there. I've got a coaching program on there, and I've also got some free giveaways, morning affirmation and things like that to help start reprogramming,
Yeah.
doing deprogramming the
Yeah.
negativity. I've got more things that I'm working on as well. So yeah,
Beautiful.
that's where you can find me.
Beautiful. You know what I mean? I'm so much happy about you, Amma.
Yeah,
Is you just told me last few days ago that you're doing another course in cybersecurity.
I
And I,
am. Yeah,
and I was like, this woman is ever learning. It's
I
amazing
do.
to know that you keep
I
learning,
do.
you keep improving on yourself. And I must
Yeah.
say, You are really an epitome of someone who has been able to go through trauma and is
Yeah.
able to come out strong. We've
Yeah.
had a great time today.
Oh,
Now,
thank
just
you.
in a way of wrapping up, looking at what you know today,
Yeah.
looking at all you've experienced, what you know now, what would you be the advice you could give to your younger self, or an advice you can give to, say, Amma at 18, Amma at
Yeah.
17? What would be that one advice or one thing you could say to Amma at that age? Or what would you also do differently knowing what you know now?
Yeah. I think I would say trust yourself, trust myself, because that's something I didn't even know the meaning of. And yeah, I would say definitely trust myself, because trusting myself means that I'm relying on me. I'm not seeking approval from anybody else. I'm not also putting limitations on myself, and I'm not going to allow anyone else to do that. So that's one of the biggest lessons I would say to myself. And I would do things differently by, I guess, slowing down, listening to my spirit and going with that before making decisions, rather than doing things to please other people or to be liked by other people. Just trusting myself. And because I think with trust comes love automatically. You can't trust yourself if you don't love yourself. So I think for me, those two go hand in hand. And had I had that when I was 18, 20, 40, my life would be totally different. But I'm grateful because better late than never, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. So we have this thing to say that we are a sum total of our life experience and
Yes.
how we interpret events of our lives. Now,
Yeah.
with all you've gone through, looking at the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, with good life, with
Yeah.
sound health, what would we see Amma doing in a big way? How would we look back to say, this is what Amma had done? Secondly, what is legacy to you? What would you define as legacy, and what would your legacy be?
For me, motivational speaking, that's my future. Books, I'm already writing. I will continue to do that. I'm always going to continue to learn no matter what. I'm never going to stop learning until I transition this plane. And for me, legacy is looking back on my life, knowing that I did something right. I've already feel like I've gotten that with my children. I'm proud of them. None of them ended up doing drugs. None of them were gangsters. None of my girls were prostitutes. They're very successful. My oldest daughter is now into cybersecurity as well. She was a building surveyor before. My son is a lawyer. He's got a very successful YouTube channel called The Venture Room. He's doing really, really well. My youngest son, the one that was my handbag, is called Karis, and he's a rapper. He's doing really, really well. My middle daughter, the one that always kind of stood there and
Yeah,
fought with
yeah,
me and for
yeah.
me, she's very successful as well. She's Kasmina. She sings, but before she was a hairstylist, self-taught, didn't go to school, just got the talent, just the raw talent to do hair and makeup. And my baby girl is at school. So that's my legacy. If nothing else, my children will be my legacy, because I was strategic when I was doing my best to shape them, because I had a lot to prove to people that kept saying they were going to be the negative and all the things wrong with the world. And I was determined to show no. So that's also an inspiration for any parent out there that's doing this job by themselves, to know that you can shape your child's future by what you instill and what you put into them. It's not going to be easy, because it wasn't, but stay focused on the end goal. I always kept seeing them. I kept seeing great things with them, and that's what kept me going. So that's part of my legacy. But for me, it will be knowing that even if it's one other woman that's found some use in my story to help propel her so that she can be the best version of herself. That will be my legacy. But for me, philanthropy, that will be my legacy. Yeah.
Wow. So for a woman listening to
Yeah.
you right now, maybe a single mother, someone who has gone through trauma, someone who has gone through abuse of any kind, listening to you right now, and
Yeah.
also have children, what would be your last word to such a person on these two things? Number one, healing. Number two, not transferring that trauma to his or her children and
Yeah.
raising children just like you did. What would be your last word to such person, or your word to such person?
You are the change. You've got this. You are the difference. Those children came to you for a reason and a season. And it's up to you to make the decision consciously to do things differently. We're about breaking generational curses, including the abuse. You have to show your sons this is not how a man is supposed to treat a woman. And your girls, this is not the kind of man, this is not the behavior you should be accepting from someone. And that means you don't accept that from anybody yourself because you are the model they want to be watching. So you have to level up your mindset. You have to work up, find a way to get out of the trauma. If you can afford to go counseling, go counseling. If you're not in a position to do that, then you've got to start with the self-help books. You have to start with the podcasts. You have to start with the subliminal beats. So many things are free on YouTube today. So many. It's so much quicker to get over things and to reprogram your mind and to undo damage. But you have to be consistent. You have to put the work in. Binaural Beats 528. You'll find that on YouTube. 30 days. It takes 21 days to reprogram your mind. If you fail at 21 days, start again. Don't give up. Just keep going. There was days when I dropped off my binaural beats. There were days I dropped off listening to the podcast that was helping me to stay focused and positive about my outlook on life. But once I dropped off, instead of feeling bad about myself and, oh, you failed, no. I just said, okay, today's a new day. I'm starting today again, and just keep going like that and journal. I would definitely recommend getting a journal. No matter where you get it from, start journaling. You write down the things that you want for yourself, predict your future. What's my future? You can sit there and write about the past, but it's not going to help you. If it's trauma dumping, that's fine. Dump it all in there and let it go. Say today is the day I'm going to write about this event that happened in my life that's disturbing my life or making me lose sleep, and I'm letting it go. Speak it out. The universe is listening, and trust the process.
Thank you so much, Amma. That's heartfelt words you said today. And I hope that someone listening to you right now would take heed to those words and run with it. And I must say thank you so much, Amma, for sharing your story with us. Thank you. It's been a wonderful time.
Thank you
And
so
I
much.
wish you all the best in your endeavor. And I look forward to having more time to talk with you on the impact you've made in the lives of other women. And I hope
For
that
sure.
whoever listened to you today will be able to have something to run with and is able to overcome their own trauma. Thank you once again for being
You're welcome.
on the
Thank you
podcast
so much.
today. Thank you,
Thank you.
Amma.
All
All
right.
right.
Bye. Bye.